So today's Noirvember film was a little bit more of a straight up crime procedural than a noir. It's from 1959 and it's Basil Dearden's Sapphire. The Criterion Collection released several of his films from the late 50s, early 60s in an eclipse set called Basil Dearden's London a few years back, and you can check that out. I highly recommend pretty much all the films that I've seen on it from it. This one is about a woman who is found murdered on Hampstead Heath. In going through the body, they discover she is pregnant. They discover that she had a fiance, and they discover when they meet her brother that she is actually um, passing for white, and that they had a black father and a white mother. And the one looks so light skinned that she passes as white, and the other clearly does not. And the rest of the film, while they're trying to solve her murder, why she was killed, follows several or unpacks a lot of the inherent racism of late 50s London. You have several landladies who will not rent to black tenants. You have several, and there's two different ones, so they kind of compare and contrast with one that clearly is like very much against it, and the other who is only against it if her tenants know. So she was okay with renting to this woman until it was clear that her tenants were about to find out that she was black, and then she kicked her out. So you discover, the detectives discover her various activities. They find the moment when she decided to try to pass as white, and what that meant for her, and what it means for those around her. Because you have the white people who felt one way about her until they discovered, and some of whom still felt the same way because they're not racist, and the black community that she was a part of, which was mostly people from the Caribbean who had immigrated to London at this time, and some from North Africa, and what her deciding to pass meant for them. And it is not a perfect breakdown of I think race, not relations is not the word I'm looking for, but like racial tensions, and the way in which much like in America, there were changing demographics in England at the time. And well, as we see now in England, there's now a different form of xenophobia and racism happening to various European immigrants that are trying to make their lives there and the way they're being treated. So, yay, racism. So, I think the film might have been, it's 1959, so what are you going to do? But I think the film probably would have been slightly more nuanced if they'd parsed through the black side of the story a little more. There were aspects of it that were still, like, it was trying to be a progressive presentation, but it was still banking on various cliches that now we're like, oh, but then they were like, no, this is progressive, and it's like, not quite. But in overall, I thought it was a really interesting like social issues noir, if you want to call it that, in the vein of something like Crossfire, or what was that, Force of Evil, things like that, Fang City story. It sort of fits into that sort of subgenre of noir. What was the last thing I want to say? Oh, it's based on a story by Janet Green. Janet Green also wrote Victim, which is probably Basil Dearden's best known film. It's with Dirk Bogarde, and it's the first, I think it was the first film in the English language to use the word homosexual, which is like, what? It's from 1961. She also wrote a couple of early British noirs, The Clouded Yellow, which is a great film noir about butterflies, trust me, and Cast a Dark Shadow. So she had written a lot of these sort of crime noir hybrid things. She also wrote the original play that became Midnight Lace, starring Doris day. So that's, I wonder if any of her work is available to purchase. I'm going to look into that. So this is the film. If you're looking for a noir that has a diverse cast, this is definitely one that has more than just a whole bunch of white people. Um, again, it's more of a crime procedural than a noir, but it is very lurid, especially at the beginning. You could see the change in cinema's presentation of violence, and particularly violence towards women. It was done in a much more harsh way than, and presented in a much more harsh way than in earlier noirs, where everything was sort of covered in shadows and off the screen. It begins with a panning of her body, and then it stops right on her dead face, and it's really kind of arresting and also just sad and gross and a little objectifying a bit of like beautiful death, if you will. So there's that. And again, beautiful Technicolor. So this is 1959 Sapphire. It's interesting. It's definitely trying to do a lot more than a lot of films did. It's hampered by its time, but it's definitely worth checking out, as are the other films of Basil Dearden.